software, right? So software packaging re-engineered. You know, I've been a Fedora user for, gosh, I guess since probably Fedora 8, right? I think we're up to Fedora 30 now. And for the last several iterations, Fedora's been using DNF. So it's been using DNF for software management. And, you know, recently, you know, I wasn't sure where things were going myself. I wasn't sure if Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 was going to use DNF or if it's going to continue to use Yum. Well, Yum version 4, it's using DNF on its back end. In fact, Yum is actually a symbolic link pointing to DNF. So you can still run Yum commands, but really in the background, it's running DNF. And so some of the things that I find to be kind of interesting with this, you know, again, we've got some differences. I'm going to connect over to one of my machines here, right? So let's go over to this one. Some of the things that you might do, you know, maybe man-k against Yum. Man-k, nothing appropriate. Man-db. Okay, let's try that. So I'm just re-indexing. And so I should find, you know, when I run man-k against a particular topic, it's going to tell me, well, here's the different pages or different man pages that talk about that. And one of the things that you'll see right away, you know, Yum, redirecting to DNF. Yum aliases, redirecting to DNF, redirecting to DNF, redirecting to DNF. So, of course you're using Yum, or you're still using Yum in Rel 8, but on the back end it is actually pointing over to DNF. Keep in mind some of these man pages do provide some interesting extra choices here. I found in particular Yum shell. You know, we'll see that there's that Yum version 4 based on DNF, it has the ability to understand weak dependencies. And I thought, you know, hey, I wanted to find out about these weak dependencies. How could I do that? And I opened up the regular man page for Yum and searched for weak. And yeah, we've got a piece in here. There's Yum shell. It's going to show this as well. So again, different types of man pages. This one might be interesting for you as well. Right? Yum to DNF. So what are some changes, you know, some upgrades that DNF has that regular Yum did not have? And so you're still it's gonna be seamless for you because in Rel 8, it is using DNF, right? So Yum's pointing to DNF, but you know, if you're coming from Red Hat Enterprise Linux 7, maybe that would be interesting. So some of the things that we have in terms of benefits with this new version of Yum, we have the ability to have modules, right? So modules that get supported. It says that it enables software app streams. You know, I don't know if you've worked with containers much, right? I've been working with containers for about 2.5 years on and off, and it kind of reminds me a lot about image streams, right? So image streams and containers, as you're building, you know, maybe a new container, you might say, oh, I want PHP. Great. Well, which version of PHP do you want? Or I want Perl. Great. Which version of Perl do you want? And sometimes, you know, when I say a version, it's not just one package. That package might have lots of different dependencies. And modules help support this, right? So you have the ability where you might say, oh, I want this particular version of Perl. Or I want this particular version of Python. I want this particular version of PostgreSQL. So Postgres. So which version do I want? And I can actually say grab it as a module. Now, these commands that get available are available to you in Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. I might do something like a Yum module list. And, you know, as I do, I can see some of these things that have different pieces, right? So here's Perl version 5.24, okay? Here's also 5.26. Now, the default, if I were to go ahead and say, hey, I want to install the Perl module, it's going to give me 5.26. You know, and I can even just test that real quickly. Yum module install Perl. I'm going to say no as part of this, but I can see it would have given me version 5.26. Now, I could have explicitly said that's what I want, or, you know, I could say maybe I want an earlier version. Give me 5.24. And this is going to give me all those dependencies for 5.24. So let's just say, yeah, sure, go ahead and give that to me. Now, you know, while there's multiple versions of certain modules available, in most cases, you're not installing two different versions at the same time, side by side. Okay, but these modules give me the ability to flip back and forth between the two. So again, if I do something like a yum module or yum list modules, I can see that yum module list, oops, list, right? So I have the ability to see that Perl 5.24 is the one that's actually installed right now. Now, if I try to install Perl 5.26, yum module install Perl 5.26, it's going to say, no, I can't do that. Okay. Hey, this the previous version's already been installed, but it gives you an idea. Here's something that you can do. Get rid of, remove the installed component and run this reset. Okay, so yum module remove Perl 5.24. And so I can go ahead and get rid of this. And again, I know when I played around with this initially myself, I thought, well, then I should just be able to install 5.26 right now, right? I mean, 5.24 is gone. Let's install 5.26. And yet you still get this message. So you can either use this DNF module reset, or I could use yum module reset. But it goes ahead and kind of clears out some information where I will be able to install a new version of Perl. And again, now it's going to say, yeah, go ahead and grab this. So you'll start to see this, right? Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 with these module streams. And sometimes you're doing it explicitly. Sometimes you're using the yum module command. But there might be other times where you're not doing that using a yum module, and you still see it install a module. For example, let's say I was looking at HTTPD. Right, so I might say I want to install HTTPD. I see it's an available package. Let's go ahead and install that package. So when it comes back with the dependency list, like you typically see, notice this piece, enabling module stream, HTTPD. Okay, so I'm installing HTTPD, but it actually realizes, oh, that's probably a module. Let's go ahead and install the module. Something else that we get in Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 is the version of yum DNF. It understands weak dependency. Okay, well, what's a weak dependency, right? So if I kind of come back up here, it understands weak dependencies, Boolean dependencies. What is a weak dependency? So weak dependency happens to be extra packages that will add functionality, but they're not required, right? So if you can add them, great, but you don't need them. So, well, you might say, well, why don't I want them? I mean, what would be cases where I don't want this? There might be occasions where you say, I'm trying to get, the minimal number of packages, maybe for security reasons. If it's a container, oftentimes containers, you're trying to strip out everything that's not necessary. So I have the ability to deal with these weak dependencies. And, so if I decide not to install with these dependencies, it's going to take away 2. Now, in this case, not really a big deal. Let's say I did man yum. I'm going to grep for weak. I haven't used this enough to remember by heart. What's the option I would use? So let's say I try doing this install again, but I set an option where I'm not going to install those weak dependencies. So here it would have installed 9 packages. In this case, it installs 7. Again, 7 packages, 9 packages. What's the big deal, right? But sometimes it can make a big deal. So I've got a different terminal open over here. And let's say I'm going to just recall a command. Now, I've got something, and I'm not going to get into all of it, but I might have a container where I want to install a couple of packages. Maybe I want to install bash. Maybe I want to install core utils. I want to just install those 2 packages, but those 2 packages are actually going to have a lot of dependencies. So if I say I don't want to install the weak dependencies, how many packages would this install? 35. Okay. Again, I'm not going to go ahead and do this, but what if I do install those weak dependencies? What's going to happen here? With HTTPD, we saw it from 7 packages to 9 packages. With this, though, notice how it went from 35 packages to 152. Now, again, maybe I want those extra packages, right? The extra functionality that they provide. That might be something where I'm like, yep, I really want those. But, again, if I'm doing something in a container where I'm trying to get it as small as possible, well, I don't necessarily want those weak dependencies. And again, this is something else that we get with the new functionality of Yum in Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8. There's also Boolean dependencies where someone who's an RPM developer, they might say you need this or that. You need this and this in terms of package versions. So Yum understands that. And so all these little pieces, there's performance improvements under the hood with Yum as well. So for you, you might not notice a bunch of stuff off the bat. For me, I started noticing modules, right? I started seeing these weak dependencies. But again, those